Kim Bradley, congratulations. Shakespeare's Guide to Living the Good Life came out. I remember when you were signing the book contracts. I have been hanging out with you throughout this process. And I just wanted, now that Shakespeare's Guide to Living the Good Life is out and about in the world, your first traditionally published book, I wanted to really get your wisdom because you've published fiction and nonfiction. You've gone the self-publishing route, and you've also gone the traditional publishing route. You've worked in a corporate style job, and now you've also been running your own business and working full time as an author. These are bridges that so many of us are trying to understand how to cross. And so I brought you on here so I can pick your brain about all the details. So to start, give us a little bit of an idea of what was behind Shakespeare's Guide to Living the Good Life. What surprised you most about the writing process for this book?
Thank you. That's such a good question. I think what I was most surprised about as a history lover is how similar Shakespeare's time, which was the late 1500s, was to exactly what we're living right now. I think now a lot of times people think this we're in unprecedented times, and in some ways we are, but when Shakespeare was putting on his plays in London in the late 1500s, the bubonic plague was going around. They had government orders that were shutting down the theaters every couple of months. It sounded so similar to the pandemic to me. There were assassination plots against Queen Elizabeth I, some of them that were very, very publicly known, and there was a lot of turmoil. So there was a lot of fear in the populace about stability. And there was also famine, pollution, natural disasters. I was surprised how similar it was, and the fact that he was very creative and was very successful in that time was intriguing to me.
Yes, climate problems. I think that's what I loved most when I was reading the book because it's not about how to live a good life when life is easy. It really is how to find the good and how to navigate difficult times. And so often, I think we can feel like we are outside of history. This is unique. We live, with the technology advances and all of those things. We can think that we live in completely unprecedented times. And so it's so comforting to go back and look at the big picture. And at the same time, so many people who are watching this YouTube channel, their challenges are about navigating transitions, about being in one place and wanting to get to their dream job, be an author full time, all of these things. And so now that you have both Shakespeare's advice and your own advice, I'd like to get into this incredible transition that you've gone through. So, before you were working a very demanding full time job, I've had that experience also, and you wrote your first novel during that time. What challenges were you up against, and how did you get through them?
Yeah, I was working very long hours at my job, and yet I still had this calling. I wanted to be a writer. My children were in college, and I was encouraging them to follow their passions. And I started to say to myself, why am I not taking my own advice? And I found that when I was motivated to do something that really called to me, that really got me excited when I thought about it, I found the time. I wrote during my lunch hour. I I made choices. I made a priority list. If I really wanted to do this, I was going to find time on the weekends, or I was going to find time at night, or, you know, sneak in, 10 or 15 minutes here or there to do the research and do the writing. And I didn't care so much about how many words I was getting in. It was almost in a weird way, kind of like an escape. Like some people might go to the gym when they get stressed out at their job, or they might, have other hobbies that they that's what they do when they're stressed out. And for me, that was kind of what writing was. And it was both a comfort, but also the beginnings of a pathway to the transition.
That's beautiful. And it's how I felt too. Something in me needed to go towards that light at the end of the tunnel. And so I think one thing is that's very important is not judging how much you can get done, but just to keep reaching and keep reaching. I remember we were working together at that time, and I remember you jet setting all over everywhere for your job. And still, because sometimes the shoulds and the life that we feel obligated to lead is crushing down on us. And when we're in this moment of transition, it just go towards that light, go towards that light, not in a morbid sense, but in that like go towards the life you want to live. And so then you made the leap, which is incredible. And I was so excited to be able to accompany you during that time as well. Tell us about it. What was the scariest and what was the best part of transitioning out of your job into writing?
Yeah, well, because I published the book while I was still working full time in my other job, it was kind of that situation where I thought like, oh, I can do this. Like I actually published a book, which means it can be done. And if it can be done when I have so much of my time wrapped up in this other piece of my life, then I think I can do it as a business. And so I would say, that was the encouragement, that was the inspiration. Actually getting it published under those circumstances was helpful. And then there were, the people who say like, "What are you doing? What? Really?" I know the people, there's the surprise and the shock and so I said, okay, well, I've been in a corporate style job. I can make a business plan. I started telling people I'm going to start a new business. And then I would put that business plan together and I kind of made like this 5-year plan of what I wanted to do. And I'm in like year 2 of that plan right now. So that's how it's going.
Awesome. And that's actually one of the things I appreciate so much and admire so much about your work is that you have taken your professional skills, the rigor, the research, the commitment, all of that, and you've moved it into this new realm of writing. And it's so interesting because I think sometimes when we're, leaping off the edge of the earth, leaping off of the professional life we've always known, we can think, oh my goodness, what am I doing? But all your professional skills that you have developed in your old life apply to your new life. And that's what has made this smooth. The way you navigated a professional world and a professional system before is how you're navigating it now, which is why I want to pick your professional brain next. So when you made that leap you just mentioned, you self-published. So you weren't waiting on the traditional publisher. You weren't going that route. You just dove in and you started this historical fiction series. And so I'd love to know, just can you give us some of the details of your experience in self-publishing versus working with a trad publisher?
Yeah. I think it worked, the timing worked out well for me because I had been in a job where I was working in, I mean, I guess you would call it a partnership, like a corporate job where you're working with a lot of other institutions, which is what my job was. And I think self-publishing was just very attractive to me at the time because the thought of pulling away from the institutions and just doing something based on my own choices and the freedom that self-publishing brought was was something that interested me. And then also I would say the timing of when you can publish a book, like the speed at which you can bring something to the readers when you're self-publishing it is just a lot faster than when you're working with a traditional publisher. So those were the two main reasons why I think my first foray was into self-publishing.
Beautiful. And that's another thing that I love about self-publishing is really the way you learn about becoming an author and understanding the market is by experimenting. And so often, experimenting again and again and being able to work at the speed of your own experiments, you can get so far ahead. And I think that had so much to do with why you were able to dive into a new world. Yet at the same time, after you made the leap, new opportunities appeared and you grabbed them. And that was awesome. And so that's why we're sitting at this new precipice where you've just published your first nonfiction book with a traditional publisher. The upside, I think, just to kind of put a pin in it, the upside of self-publishing is the freedom and then the speed to experiment and learn faster without holding back and working with another person's system. At the same time, I remember reviewing the contract. I remember being able to, you would come and talk to me after meetings and things like that. So what was the kind of support you received when you worked with a traditional publisher? And tell us a little bit about that adventure also.
Yeah, that was really fun. And I had this opportunity because of authors that I met. You know, when you delve into the I want to be an author, I want to be a writer world, you meet lots of other writers. And I was introduced to several Hay House authors, and one of them was speaking at a conference that was sponsored by Hierophant Publishing. And so I went to the event to see this other author. And that's where the opportunity for a book contract was raised. And I entered the contest and I won the contest. And I think I met so many other authors who were traditionally published at that event, and it had that family feel. So it was a nice pathway to say like, oh, okay, this traditional publishing has its own benefits. They're different than the indie author world, but they have different aspects that are also attractive. And so I was really fortunate to be able to sort of delve into both sides.
There are a few things, of course, I really want to draw out and repeat from that because that family feel. I like to talk about ideal publishing partners. And so often the partnership is the network that they can bring. And so I love how because you've worked in systems, you've worked with institutions, you came into this eyes wide open and you really looked at the benefits that would make this a really great partnership. And so that's beautiful. And so next, this is nonfiction. You are also just doing great writing fiction. What do you like about the different genres? What can you tell us about choosing nonfiction or fiction?
Well, I think I learned more about myself as a reader because I I love all books. I read a lot of nonfiction. I love personal development books. I love inspirational books. I love books that are nonfiction history books like and I also, I mean, since a kid, just loved anything that was an adventure story, science fiction, fantasy, action, adventure, mystery, thriller, history. Like I love them all. And so me as a person and me as a writer, it feels kind of natural to want to write both of those styles of books because I devour both of those styles of books, and it doesn't. Nobody told me that I had to stick into one, particular genre, and I guess because nobody told me I had to, I didn't.
And that's so great because when you go into the process like adventure, there are things that surprise you, there are things that go great, there are things that don't go great. It's got all of the aspects of an adventure. And so when you're always taking it on like that, a little bit scrappy, knowing that things will go right and wrong, I think that it has also been a big key to your success. And so I'd love to know, this has been an adventure. And with this particular career move, and also with Shakespeare's Guide to Living the Good Life, you've been the protagonist. So how have you grown or changed since you've made this transition? What have you learned from it?
Yeah, especially researching the Shakespeare book and researching the mental health aspects of some of the ideas in the Shakespeare book about hospitality and compassion and forgiveness, service. Those things I learned a lot about how to put them into practice in my own life as a new author. And had I not had the opportunity to write that book and do that research and put those chapters together, with the idea that I love Shakespeare and I love these kinds of development books. So I wanted to kind of see if it would be helpful to other people to bring that out into the publishing world. And it has. It's helped me. And I hope that it also helps the people who read the books.
Yeah, definitely. We are all looking for silver linings right now. We are all, deep in the struggles. And so I think Shakespeare's Guide to Living the Good Life is one of those perfect books to help you navigate complicated times because they have been navigated before. And I know this book leapt to the top of its category, Shakespeare Literary Criticism. And yet, you do not need to be a literary critic or even a literary person to get a lot out of it. So Kim, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been so fun for me to learn from both sides of your journey, the self-publishing and the traditional publishing side. And so thank you so much for everything you have brought to the table and shared with all of us.
Yeah, I could not have done this without you helping me on both sides. I'm so glad that you have experience in all of these realms because there were many times where I called you and said, I do not know what I'm doing. You kind of talked me off the ledge, but that's what the partnership is about. That, finding somebody who you click with, who supports you, who understands what your goals are and helps you work toward them. Like that's really important, I think, in making the transition to becoming a full-time author.
Yes, and that's also a chapter in the book, meeting the right people and making those partnerships. So absolutely wonderful. I am going to put the link to Shakespeare's Guide to Living the Good Life right below and get connected to us because if you haven't found the right people yet, we have a community right here. So much love. Ciao for now.